1. Je t'aime, moi non plus, Serge Gainsbourg and Jane Birkin, 1969. French poet Serge Gainsbourg wrote this as a love song for actress Brigitte Bardot. They recorded it together in 1967. The session was so intimate that tabloids claimed they'd actually made love in the studio. Bardot's husband found out. She begged Gainsbourg not to release it. He agreed. Then he met Jane Birkin. Birkin was a 22-year-old British actress. When Gainsbourg asked her to re-record the song, she agreed immediately. Not because she loved the track, because she didn't want anyone else singing it with him. The result was 17 minutes of breathy French whispers building to unmistakable sounds of climax. BBC censors reportedly counted the simulated orgasms. They found over 20. The song was banned immediately. Italy's distributor was allegedly excommunicated by the Vatican. Spain, Sweden, and Brazil followed with their own bans. It didn't matter. The controversy made it irresistible. The original label, Fontana, panicked and withdrew the single even as it climbed to number 2. A smaller label, Major Minor, bought the rights and watched it hit number 1. It became the first banned song to top the UK charts. Also, the first foreign language single to do so. Birkin later said she never understood the fuss. In her view, it wasn't a rude song at all. 2. Lola, The Kinks, 1970. Everyone assumed this song would be banned for its content. A man meets someone in a Soho club who walks like a woman but talks like a man. The narrator falls in love anyway. The BBC didn't care about that. They cared about Coca-Cola. The original lyric mentioned drinking champagne that tastes like the famous soft drink. The BBC had strict rules against product placement on public airwaves. The song couldn't be played. Ray Davies was in the middle of an American tour when he got the news. He flew from New York to London, a 6,000-mile round trip, to change 2 words. His first recording session didn't work. The take wasn't good enough. He flew back to America for a show in Chicago, then immediately flew back to London to try again. The second attempt worked. Coca-Cola became Cherry Cola. The BBC approved the song. Australia, meanwhile, banned it for the actual content. Radio stations there edited out the final revelation about Lola's identity, fading the song before the truth emerged. The irony is perfect. The BBC ignored the gender themes entirely. They just didn't want to advertise soft drinks. 3. God Save the Queen, Sex Pistols, 1977. The timing couldn't have been worse, or better, depending on your perspective. Queen Elizabeth II was celebrating her Silver Jubilee, 25 years on the throne. The entire nation was preparing for parades, ceremonies, and patriotic celebration. Then the Sex Pistols released a song with the same title as the national anthem, except their version called the monarchy a fascist regime. The BBC banned it immediately. Radio 2's controller called it gross bad taste. Major retailers refused to stock it. Woolworths, Boots, and W.H. Smith all declined. The band's manager, Malcolm McLaren, couldn't have asked for better publicity. On the day of the Jubilee celebration, the Sex Pistols performed the song from a boat on the River Thames, floating past the Houses of Parliament. Police chased the vessel and arrested everyone on board when it docked. Despite the ban, the song sold 150,000 copies per day. It climbed to number 2 on the official charts, blocked from number 1 by Rod Stewart. Or was it? Multiple sources claim the Sex Pistols actually outsold Stewart that week. Rumors persist that the charts were manipulated to avoid embarrassment during the Jubilee. W.H. Smith's in-store chart displayed a blank line where the number 2 position should have shown the title. The band's name couldn't be printed, their song couldn't be played, and it became the most talked-about single of the decade. 4. Walk on the Wild Side, Lou Reed, 1972. This is the song that should have been banned everywhere. The lyrics describe transgender women, male prostitutes, drug injection, and oral sex. Every verse introduces another character from Andy Warhol's factory scene, each more transgressive than the last. RCA Records prepared a censored version for radio. They removed the oral sex reference and changed the phrase about colored girls to something more neutral. Most stations played the original anyway. The BBC played it completely uncut, week after week, on primetime radio. Why? Because the censors didn't understand the slang. The phrase giving head meant nothing to British radio executives in 1972. It wasn't common terminology in the UK, so they approved the song without realizing what it actually described. Lou Reed later said he wrote it to introduce listeners to characters they probably hadn't met before, or hadn't wanted to meet. He never expected it to become a hit, let alone his signature song. the most explicitly transgressive track of the decade, snuck past every censor through sheer ignorance. 5. Love to Love You Baby, Donna Summer, 1975. Producer Giorgio Moroder wanted something different. He asked Donna Summer to record a breathy, intimate vocal for an experimental disco track. She agreed, but only if they turned off the studio lights. In the darkness, Summer imagined herself as an actress playing a role. She later said this mental separation was the only way she could perform the increasingly explicit sounds the song required. The original version stretched past 17 minutes. Summer's moans and gasps billed throughout, culminating in unmistakable sounds of ecstasy. The BBC banned it from daytime play. American stations refused to touch it. Casablanca Records cut an edited version for radio, just over 3 minutes, with most of the explicit content removed. This shorter version climbed to number 2 on the Billboard charts, but the full-length album version changed music history. DJs in clubs played the complete 17-minute track, and dancers loved it. The extended mix format was born. Disco would never be the same. Summer later distanced herself from the song after becoming a born-again Christian, but its influence on dance music remains permanent. 6. The Pill, Loretta Lynn, 1975. Loretta Lynn had given birth to 4 children before her 21st birthday. She knew exactly what she was writing about. Her song celebrated birth control with a directness that shocked country radio. The narrator declares freedom from the endless cycle of pregnancy, childbirth, and exhaustion. Country stations across America refused to play it. The subject matter was too controversial, too political, too feminist. It didn't matter that Lynn was already one of country music's biggest stars. It didn't matter that she was speaking from personal experience. The song was effectively blacklisted. Despite the radio ban, it reached number 70 on the Billboard Hot 100, entirely through word of mouth and the few stations brave enough to air it. Nearly 50 years later, many country stations still won't play it. 7. Imagine, John Lennon, 1971. The most peaceful song on this list has been banned more times than almost any other. Religious groups protested the opening line about imagining no heaven. They called it atheist propaganda. Some radio stations quietly stopped playing it. Then came the Gulf War in 1991. The BBC decided the song's message was inappropriate during wartime. They pulled it from playlists. After September 11, 2001, Clear Channel Communications distributed a memo to their stations suggesting certain songs be avoided. Lennon's anthem was on the list. A song about peace was deemed too controversial during a time of violence. The pattern repeated. A song calling for unity kept getting silenced during the moments when its message mattered most. 8. War, Edwin Starr, 1970. Motown's songwriting team wrote this as a Vietnam protest song. They initially gave it to The Temptations, who recorded a version for one of their albums. But Motown's executives worried. The Temptations were too mainstream, too successful. An explicitly anti-war statement might damage their image. They gave the song to Edwin Starr instead. His version was supposed to be buried on an album, not released as a single. Radio stations found it anyway. The response was overwhelming. Despite concerns about political controversy, the song shot to number 1. It became the definitive Vietnam protest anthem, screaming its central question with an intensity that matched the anger in the streets. When the Gulf War began 2 decades later, it got banned again. 9. Brown Sugar, The Rolling Stones, 1971. This one remains controversial for different reasons. The lyrics reference the slave trade, sexual exploitation, and racial imagery that many found offensive even in 1971. Some radio stations pulled it immediately. Others played it without understanding what they were broadcasting. Mick Jagger himself later admitted he would never write such a song today. In interviews, he acknowledged the problematic content while defending it as a product of its time. For 50 years, the song remained a concert staple despite ongoing criticism. Then, in 2021, the band quietly stopped performing it live. No official announcement. They simply removed it from the setlist. Some bans happen immediately. Others take half a century. 10. Short People, Randy Newman, 1977. Randy Newman wrote this as satire. The narrator expresses hatred for short people, an obvious absurdity meant to mock prejudice itself. Radio stations didn't get the joke. Several pulled the song, believing Newman was genuinely attacking people of shorter stature. A Maryland state legislator actually attempted to have it banned. Newman received death threats. The controversy made it famous. It became his only top 10 hit. Newman's entire career was built on unreliable narrators and dark satire. This song was no different. But decades of sophisticated songwriting couldn't compete with a single misunderstanding. 11. Anarchy in the UK. Sex Pistols, 1976. Before God Save the Queen, there was this. EMI signed the Sex Pistols and released their debut single in late 1976. Then the band appeared on a live television program and swore repeatedly. The host had goaded them into it. EMI dropped the band immediately. They destroyed most of the unsold copies. A&M Records signed them next, then dropped them after less than a week, reportedly because of the band's behavior at a post-signing party. Another 25,000 copies were destroyed. Virgin Records finally took a chance. The song became a punk anthem, not despite the chaos, but because of it. Every label that rejected them only increased their legend. 12. My Ding-a-Ling, Chuck Berry, 1972. Moral campaigner Mary Whitehouse launched a formal effort to get this banned from the BBC. The innuendo was obvious. The live audience sing-along made it worse. The BBC reviewed the complaint. They kept playing it. Whitehouse's campaign failed completely. The song became Chuck Berry's first and only #1 hit, bigger than any of his rock and roll classics from the 1950s. The father of rock and roll finally topped the charts with a novelty song about exactly what you think it's about. 13. Roxanne, The Police, 1978. Sting wrote this about falling in love with a prostitute. The narrator begs her to leave the profession, promising she doesn't have to sell her body anymore. The BBC considered this prostitution propaganda. They froze airplay for 3 months. The delay actually helped. By the time the ban lifted, anticipation had built. The song became the Police's breakthrough hit, introducing their reggae-influenced rock to mainstream audiences. Without the initial controversy, they might have remained an underground act. 14. Radio, Elvis Costello, 1978. Elvis Costello wrote this as an attack on radio censorship and the corporations controlling what audiences could hear. The lyrics accused broadcasters of silencing artists and manipulating the public. Then he got invited to perform on Saturday Night Live. The producers wanted him to play a different song. Costello agreed during rehearsals. But when the live broadcast began, he stopped mid-performance, turned to his band, and launched into Radio instead. Lorne Michaels was furious. Costello wasn't invited back for 12 years. The moment became legendary. A song about being silenced got its biggest audience through an act of defiance against the people trying to silence it. 15. A Day in the Life, The Beatles, 1967. The BBC banned this for 4 words. I'd love to turn you on. They interpreted it as a drug reference. The orchestral crescendo, the dreamlike structure, the line about counting holes, all of it confirmed their suspicions. The BBC created an instrumental version with the vocals removed. This was the only version they would play. The album it appeared on, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, became the best-selling record of the decade. The ban on a single track did nothing to slow its success. If anything, the controversy proved the album was dangerous. That was exactly what young listeners wanted.